Wow, what a great day it's been. And we've heard some great messages from the other speakers, right? Find your passion. Follow with perseverance. Find the things that make you happy so that you live in flow and make your work really satisfying. And you'll accomplish whatever you're looking for and have a very rich life. And, you know, I have a story that I could tell about a young boy who was fascinated with flying. And that I got that story and that passion early on, and that I knew exactly where I wanted to go. And so I ended up applying and get accepted for a Navy scholarship, and I fly fighters off aircraft carriers, ultimately commanding a squadron, leading the Blue Angels, and then becoming the Air Wing commander on the USS John F. Kennedy. But that story wouldn't be true. I mean, the timeline is the same, right? And I know many of you, from the applications you wrote to attend here today, many of you already have a good idea in mind about what your passion is, what you want to do. But what about for the rest of us that when I was your age in high school, I had no idea what my lifelong passion was going to be. I was too busy playing sports and hanging out with my friends and so forth, and I go off to college, and I still don't have any real clear idea. So what do we do? You know, because after I left college, I went to flight school. And I'm telling you, it was really hard work learning how to fly. And through each phase of training, there were places in there where I wanted to quit, where I was wondering, is this really for me? Because it was hard work. And there were times that I just didn't perform as well as I would have liked. But I continued on, and after getting my wings of gold, I went to the fleet. I learned to fly the A-7E Corsair II, and there I was struggling as well. This is hard work, because imagine in training, guess what? If there's any flight in training where you're comfortable, then that's money that could have been spent elsewhere, right? So the idea isn't to make you really good. It's to help you develop a certain level of skill and then move on, keep moving on, keep moving on. So you never have this sense that I'm really good. But finally, I get to the fleet, and I'm flying off aircraft carriers around the world, and I accumulate enough experience. I dedicate myself to what they call deliberate practice, where I accumulate the experience and the time and so forth, and suddenly I start getting really good at this. And that's for me when this passion took hold, where I knew this was for me. This suddenly became fun. This is something now I'm waking up every morning and I can't wait to go do. This is, I stay awake at night thinking about it. And so from here, somebody says to me, you know what? You ought to think about becoming a Blue Angel. You got to be kidding me. Okay, that's pretty cool. And suddenly my world got a little, and I applied to be a Blue Angel, and guess what? I didn't get picked. So I continue on, and one of the things that helped me develop the skill levels that I needed to do was every time I was faced with something that I wanted to get better at, I didn't feel like I was good enough at, the secret for me to get better was to teach it. So I put myself in situations where I had to teach it, because if you can teach it, then you can really own it. You can really learn it, right? And so for me, as an example, when I first started landing on the aircraft carriers, particularly at night, and let me tell you, I was smart enough, unlike Larry, I went to sea in big ships, right? But even they get bounced around in the big storms. And when you're trying to land on one of these things in the middle of the night, 1,000 miles from land, and it's pitching and rolling and so forth, I'm telling you, it gives you white hair is what it does. But I put myself in a situation where I volunteered to be an instructor to teach carrier landings. And therefore, because I had to teach it, I got better and better at it. And so along came the F-18, and I was selected to learn to fly the F-18 in one of the very first squadrons, and it was during my time in this squadron that I was selected to go to Top Gun and be a student at Top Gun. And we can talk sometime afterwards about that. We realized early on that this was not a documentary, But I think the movie captured very well the intensity of flight and the intensity of the students working together as a team trying to defeat the instructors as they go through this rigorous 5-week program. I was fortunate enough to be invited to come back to the school after I left this squadron and to become an instructor at Top Gun for 3 years. And from there, I go back to the fleet, participate in Operation Desert Storm, and then get selected to command my own squadron of F-18s flying off aircraft carriers. And it was during this time that I got selected to be the flight leader for the Blue Angels, here showing us over Niagara Falls. And what a thrill that was, to be able to tell the American people the story of the Navy and Marine Corps, and to be able to hopefully inspire young people like yourselves to sign up and serve their country. And people often ask me, how close do you guys really fly? I mean, I see you down at Fleet Week, but come on, how close are you guys really flying? Well, here's a picture of us during Fleet Week, and here we are in front of Alcatraz, and you can see this is the diamond formation. 4 pilots flying as one. Extreme teamwork for 40 minutes. Now look at the wingtips between the number 2 and number 3 jet, right? And the number 4 pilot flying behind me, this is what it looks like from his cockpit. 350 miles an hour in between the buildings and in the turbulence and everywhere else. This is our day at the office, right? And so then from here, I went on and commanded the entire air wing on the USS John F. Kennedy, having all 9 squadrons working for me. Talk about a thrill that was, where I got to fly all the different aircraft off the carrier. And so one of the things that I want to share with you today that was sort of a thread through my career, it was hard work, it had setbacks, it had challenges, it required perseverance. But the one thing that made the difference for me was, and I believe this is the most critical skill you have to have if you want to be a successful leader. And that is, you have to be able to develop an incredibly high sense of trust in yourself, right? We all know that, right? No leader is going to be followed if people don't trust him or her, right? It makes perfect sense. All the books talk about it. But if you read the books, they don't necessarily tell you how do you get it. That's what I want to tell you today, because think about it. If you were the most trusted person, and by the way, as somebody mentioned earlier, there's no significant achievement that can be done. You will not be able to realize a big dream by yourself. It takes teamwork. It takes other people. It takes coaches. It takes parents. It takes colleagues. It takes customers. It takes a large group of people in order for you to realize a big dream. And in order to do that, in order to have a successful team, then you have to be able to be highly trusted to get your dream off the ground or off the deck. And so imagine, what would it mean if you were the most trusted person around? What would that mean? Well, first of all, it would mean that any time that there's something important to be done, any difficult challenge, any big project, guess what? They're coming to you to do that, right? Because you are really, really trusted. And likewise, when you're a leader and you're putting together a team, everybody wants to be on your team. People are going to show up from everywhere to join your team if you have developed a high level of trust. So, there's a huge power of attraction here. And I believe if you will think about this going forward, what are the things that you need to do to be viewed as very trustworthy, that really good things are going to happen to you? Whether it's the coach calling your number to go in and take the big shot at the end of the game, whether it's to be selected to be the first chair in your orchestra, whether it's you want the car keys to go out on the big date or stay out or whatever you want from your parents, being trusted is a huge enabler to getting what you want. So these are the things that I came up with because with the Blue Angels as an example, we never forgot the tragic lesson that our Air Force brethren, the Thunderbirds, learned January 18th, 1982, when they were doing a formation loop, line abreast, and the leader didn't pull out. And because the wingmen are not looking anywhere else but at their leader to fly that close together, they impacted 4 jets symmetrically spaced in the desert floor north of Las Vegas, killing all 4 pilots. So this was something that I, as the flight leader, had to come to work every day in order to develop a level of trust in me that these guys would come to work and literally put their lives in my hands every day as we flew 6 days a week for 11 and a half months of the year for 2 years. And these were the things that I had to do. There were 5 things I had to pay attention to. I had to pay attention to all 5. You can't leave any of them out. But if you work on all of these, they relate to each other, and pretty soon you become a leader that is a real powerful force because people believe in you and they trust you. And the axiom we had was, in order to be trusted, you must be trustworthy, right? You say to your parents, hey, come on, trust me. Trust me. Well, trust can't be bought, it can't be coerced, it can't be bought. It can only be earned. It's a gift. And it's a gift that you receive when you earn it, when you show that you are worthy of it, right? So here are the 5. The first one is character. And for character, it means simply, do you walk your talk? Do you keep your promises? Do you live up to your commitments? Do you walk your values every single day? Not just now and then, not just when it's convenient, not just when the spotlight is on, but do you follow the golden rule? Do you treat people with respect? Do you work hard every day? Do you do all those things day after day after day in those hundreds of little choices that we make along the way? That's what defines your character. The second one is commitment. Now, my team knew that I was going to be there for them whenever the times were good, right? But what they wanted to know is, are you going to be here when times are tough? Are you going to show up whenever we're in a crisis, whenever the boat is getting swamped by waves? Are you going to show up, and not just show up, are you going to show up and play your A game? That's what they want. They want someone who's going to play to win all the time. And if they believe you're that person, then they're going to trust you. Let me tell you a quick story, because in every endeavor, there are storms that you're going to encounter. And how you respond to those storms determines the outcome and whether you're going to be trusted. We did an air show. One of my first air shows with the Blue Angels was in El Paso, Texas. For those of you that are not familiar with El Paso, Texas, every day is a windy day in El Paso, Texas. And this day was no exception. In fact, this day was a high wind day. There was about 35 or 40 knots blowing. And look at this map, and look what do you see to the west of the airfield that's circled there in white. What do you see? Mountains, right. There's a huge ridge line west of the field. And so these 40 knots of wind are blowing through this ridge line, and there is incredible turbulence overhead the field. Now, many of you have flown in airliners and gone through turbulence. What did that feel like? Right? It's not a comfortable feeling as that airplane is bouncing around. Well, we're getting ready to go out and fly 2 feet apart in 40 knots of turbulence. And I'm wondering, I don't know how this is going to go. And we get airborne, and I'm telling you, we are being rocked. I mean, it's like somebody has a sledgehammer against the side of my airplane. Bang, bang, bang. And I'm just hunkered down trying to fly as steady a jet as I can for my wingman. And I look in my mirrors, and all I see behind me is blue and gold jet, blue and gold metal. as these guys are hunkered in, Blue Angel close, 2 feet away from my jet. And somehow that day we didn't bump into each other. And when we landed, we were a different team. Because that day, they learned that they could depend on me when times were tough. When the going got tough, they knew I would be there bringing my A game. And guess what? I also learned that I could depend on them to be there with me going through that storm. And so we took our game to a whole different level after that experience. The next one is competence. And I put it third here for a reason, because oftentimes when you think about, do I trust somebody, the first question you ask is how good are they, right? That's what you put on your resume, and that's what typically people are interviewed for. But I submit to you that if you don't have the first two, the character and the commitment, the competence doesn't matter. I call this the Terrell Owens syndrome, for those of you that are 49ers fans that may remember. By reputation, one of the great football players of all time, but also by reputation, he was toxic in the locker room and on the field because he didn't have the character and the commitment. And so he bounces around from team to team. So competence means you've got to improve every day. You can never accept that you are good enough. Every day you have to continuously take feedback, constructive feedback, suppress your ego, because feedback is a gift that lets you know what do you have to improve on, right? And guess who is probably the most effective person to give you feedback? Somebody who doesn't like you very much, because they don't care how you feel about it, right? And what they're going to do is they're going to take this feedback, this truth about your performance, and they're going to wrap it up in a whole bunch of other stuff, unfortunately, and they're going to stick it in your face. And you have to be wise enough to unravel all of that and find out where in there is the message that I need to act on so that I can get better every day. And not only do you have to continue to improve your skills, but you have to make sure that your skills remain relevant. Because this world just keeps on changing, right? And the work that you did 6 months ago is no longer the work that you should be doing today. And 6 months from now or a year from now, it's going to be different again and again. So you have to constantly be working to improve and to stay relevant. Because my guys didn't care that I was a really good dogfighter or that I was an accurate bomber in the F-18. What they cared about was, could I fly a loop day after day after day without dropping my wing more than a degree or two? That was relevance for them. And so think about this. You know, people get to be my age, and the problem that we have is that we've got this ego that gets in the way, and we never want to look bad, right? We never want to make a mistake. But the problem is when that happens, then you stop trying new things, and you lose your relevance. So I encourage you all the time, continue to try new things. Continue to do different things so that you continue to adapt and improve and stay relevant. The fourth thing is connection. And the key thing here was, my team wanted to know was, does the boss understand me? Which is a different question than me asking myself, do I understand them? Because what I think is interesting but not relevant. What's relevant to someone that you want to trust you is their belief that you understand them and their concerns and their fears and their hopes and what's most important to you, right? Because when they believe that and you take the time to listen in order to understand them, then they will follow you anywhere. I mean, they will do amazing things. I could literally change the trajectory of a maneuver by the inflection of my voice on the radios. But if for a minute these guys thought, uh-oh, I don't think he understands what he's asking me to do, right? Then the reaction is they're going to pull away. There's going to be hesitancy. They're going to wonder. And now we're no longer going to accomplish the mission because they don't really trust me, right? The final one is communication. This is the oil that drives the high trust engine. Because think about it. Can you trust somebody who doesn't communicate? Right? If they don't communicate to you, you don't know, what are they thinking? What are their intentions? What's going on? And if they don't communicate, then you're going to put a story to it. You're going to infer what their intentions are, what they're all about, right? And it may not be accurate. So to be trusted, you have to learn how to communicate effectively. And certainly by that, it has to be verbally. In your writing, in your speaking, you need to be very clear, concise, and direct. Because think about it, if you're not clear, right, they're not going to get the message. How many of you have had a conversation with somebody and you walk away and you go, I have no idea what that person meant? I mean, come on, I'm sure you walk out of many classes feeling that way. And how about if you're not concise, right? Where you just, the person rambles on and on, blah, 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 blah. Pretty soon, you turn off. The communication isn't going to occur. Or you're not direct. And this often happens when we have bad news to communicate to somebody, right? We just sort of throw it out there and we hope that they realize it's meant for them. But if they don't know that the message is intended for them, how are they going to get it? And think about it. With all the connectivity we have today, thanks to AT&T and everybody else, right? We've got this incredible influx of data coming at us. 10,000 and more messages a day. And now the only way to break through that, to get the message to the people that are on your team is, you better be clear, concise, and direct. And never forget that it is the nonverbal communication that speaks even more loudly than anything you say, right? It's your example. Your actions speak much louder than your words. And make no mistake, the microphone is always on. The people that matter to you are always listening to you, whether it's verbally or non-verbally. And you have to ask yourself, am I sending the messages to the people that I want to be sending? Right? So you put those 5 all together, that you walk your talk, that you show up when times are tough and play your A game, that you continuously improve and become really good. And remember, that's when I understood what my passion was. I took something that was very interesting to me, flying, and I dedicated myself to be getting really good at it. And when I got really good at it, then the passion went through the roof. And then connecting to others, being willing to listen so that they feel understood, and then finally communicating clearly, concisely, and directly, and consistently with your actions. If you do all of this, then you are going to be on fire. And whatever dream you have, whatever mission you're on, is going to go through even the sky will not be the limit. And if you do this work to develop where you are viewed as the most trustworthy person and you surround yourself with people like you, you become a team that is so extraordinary, so phenomenal, that you are certainly going to be remembered and living a life that matters. And then you can turn the smoke on and just let it rip. Thanks very much.